Smart 24, driving business.
Thank you so much for staying with us and watching Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. This is The Point, and my name is Anthony. And now, still talking about some of the highlights of the US African Summit going down in the Washington, D.C., in the United States. One of the challenges that has been highlighted has been our education system and what it's contributing to the labor force. And I want us to just talk a little bit about this issue with Mr. Alex now. Mr. Mwezi, you mentioned very keenly that for us to grow our economy, for us to become a net exporter like the United States, we must address the issue of labor force. And one way, of course, of going down to the labor force, we must have our education systems producing relevant minds to the global economy currently that we are living in. Now, one of the highlights when you talk about education in Uganda is the fact that we have so many people who are distressed by the education system, including the people in the system themselves, that is the students. They think what they're getting from school is literally old school. We are still learning about Canadian prairies. We are studying about the history of Zambezi, Zwangendaba, and so many other people who actually, people in our age think it's irrelevant information. What do you think can be done for us to align our education system with our economic goals as a country?
Yeah, thank you so much, Anthony. You brought it out well. The starting point is to know what are our goals as a country. What is our goal as a country? Do you know what Uganda wants to achieve? If I was to ask you, Anthony.
Yes, I think I have a picture. I think we would want to have a country where we can be producers. We can produce things. And that's why I've seen President Museveni push for the Kira EV motors.
You don't need to have an idea.
Yes.
You don't need to have an idea. You need to know what is our strategic goal as Uganda. Our strategic goal will offer direction on where we should focus. That strategic direction that strategic goal will guide us on what type of education do we need. The purpose of education is to solve society problems. Our problems today as a country, one of them is exporting and processed goods. Does our education, what is the linkage between our education and that problem? Does our education solve this problem? I don't think so. Well, there are efforts to address the gap, but I don't think much is being done. So we need first to know what are our needs as a country. Once we have clearly identified what our needs are as a country, and there is agreement, there is consensus across board that these are our problems, these are our needs as a country, then we align our education system to address these needs. That's where the challenge is. We are teaching people, we are laboring, investing, spending time and money, teaching people things that they are not going to use. Why should you, for example, teach me about the geography of Canada when I don't even know where Bwindi Impenetrable Forest is located? You should teach me about Chisoro district so that I know where Bwindi Impenetrable Forest is, what is in the Bwindi Impenetrable Forest is, what is in the forest, So that, for example, if I meet a Kenyan, I am able to tell them that, my brother, you are missing a road by not visiting this park. Because in this park there is A, B, C, D. So you have equipped that person. So that's really the starting point. What is our need as a country? What are our needs? Then what is the type of education we have? What are we teaching our people? Unfortunately or fortunately, whichever direction you want to look at it, we are training our people to go and look for jobs. We are training people to go and look and work for others, which is okay. But can we offer holistic education that provides Alex with an opportunity that once I get out of this education system, I am able to think of what I can do for myself. I am able to think of what can I contribute to our national development. What can I contribute to our national agenda? But the challenge is that most of us don't know that national agenda is not shared with us. So for me, if we are to address the gaps in our education system, we need to look at this nation as a business. We need to look at Uganda as a company that has business objectives to deliver. Now, once those objectives are very clear, then we align our system, our ecosystem, and that in that ecosystem is the education system that produces skills to support this entity called Uganda. Once that is clear, I tell you we can address the gaps in our education system. Because we can't keep, education has changed. It has evolved because of, for example, technology, globalization. You want to train a Ugandan who is able to compete in South Africa. He's able to compete with a South African. He's able to go on an international forum and compete with someone who has studied from, for example, Turkey. So that's the kind of model that we need to be thinking about. We cannot say what worked yesterday will work today. The challenges of today are different from the challenges of our parents. The challenges you and I are confronted with are different from the challenges that our parents were confronted with. So that's where we need to appreciate and then appreciate those challenges, and also not forgetting that not economics, but the environment in which we operate in is not static. It is changing every day. So our curriculum needs to continue, needs continuous assessment to determine whether this curriculum addresses the gaps in our economic challenges, because we have to appreciate that the economy is the base of a sustainable society. If you don't address the livelihood of any society, that society cannot stand. So my view and opinion on this matter is, let's first agree on what are the needs of this country. Let it be clear to all of us as citizens of this country that this is our need and this is how we feel it should be addressed. Number two, align our education system to addressing our economic challenges. The economic tigers we talk of, countries like Malaysia, countries like South Korea. These countries, Uganda was better than these countries in the 1960s and 70s. But where are they today? These are now high-income countries with GDPs that triple that of Uganda. The issue is around education. The issue is around governance. The issue is around discipline. So this whole entire ecosystem of development has to be addressed. We address the education. The other key point is that we need a healthy population. So we must invest in the health sector. We must, one, train enough medical practitioners. Number two, remunerate them very well, pay them very well to avoid or curtail brain drain. As we speak today, we have a number of our medical doctors who have left this country and gone to work in Southern Africa and our neighboring countries. And one of the contributing factors is low pay.
I think also low pay comes to the education sector.
Yes.
I think when you go to Europe,
Yeah.
a teacher and a doctor
They
are
key.
much more highly paid than
Yes.
any other
Because
individual,
that's,
even more than government officials.
That's what holds society.
Yeah.
Then these medical practitioners you have trained, provide them with adequate tools to deliver on their job, build enough health centers, and improve access to a health facility by the ordinary citizen, invest in a public health, invest in a health education so that people are health conscious, people practice best health practices so that you address issues of health, because you need a health population. Address issues of access to water, tackle issues of access to access, not just access to water, but access to clean water. So why am I speaking about these issues? The sum total of these issues has an impact on economic development of any nation. You have a sick population, there will be a direct opposite relationship between economic development and the health and an health population. Then you have a poorly skilled population, you will struggle with economic growth. You will, for example, spend heavily on experts. You will struggle to find the people to provide value to your economy. So all these issues are intertwined. They can't be looked at in isolation. And I want to thank Smart TV for always providing an opportunity for us to discuss these issues. And if you can permit me, Anthony, for me, this is the time I want to speak to parents and the students who could be listening to us. Every time you have an opportunity to take your child to school or for you to go to school, ask yourself, whatever I am going to study, how does it address the challenges our country is facing? There's a relationship between job access and the challenges you are able to address. There's work in this country that you struggle to find people to do because you don't have those people in the economy. So every time you are thinking of going to school, every time you're thinking of taking your child to school, those are key questions. Ask yourself as a parent, as a child, because ultimately, if you are considering looking for a job, the economy will ask you, what are you bringing on the table and what problem can you address? So for me, these are some of the issues that need to be discussed. And then we also, our policy makers, because all of this is also driven by policy. What policy do we have in place regarding education in relationship to our economic development agenda? Whoever is seated in the Ministry of Education, as they think about different economic strategy, different education strategies to put in place, do they put on the heart of an economist? Are they looking at the social aspects? Do they understand where this country needs to be? Where this country aspires to be? So as you're modeling the type of education, have that at the back of your mind, that Uganda needs to move from A to B, and to move from A to B, Uganda needs this type of education. So once this is well aligned and put in place, adequate resources provided for the education sector, for the health sector, we should be able to run as a country. The other point I forgot to talk about is that among the other key issues being discussed at the US Africa Summit is what role can a diaspora community play in the economic development of Africa. That's very, very key. We have a very significant diaspora community. In the case of Uganda, their contribution to our GDP is quite significant. Very, very significant. This is a group of people you cannot underestimate, you cannot ignore, you must attend to. So this group of people needs to be supported with information. Enabling laws need to be put in place to allow them to invest in their countries with minimal stress and disruption. In some countries in Africa, they have even created ministries in charge of diaspora to ensure that diaspora issues are adequately attended to, because they play a very key role in a country's economic development.
I read that they contribute about 900 million
Yes.
US dollars in remittances. That's the amount of money coming
Yes.
in here. More than coffee, which we actually export.
No, actually more. They bring in more money than all our exports aggregated.
Sure.
So you cannot ignore them.
Yeah.
You must provide maximum attention to them. You see, the other key factor is that this group of people promote your country. Now, once your country is promoted, you attract inflows in form of tourists, in form of tourism.
And that's why I wanted actually to ask you. The president, when during his speech, highlighted Mountain Rwenzori. Actually, the pictures were
Yes.
moving all over the screen.
When he was in the UK.
Yes. Even now in the
Yes.
US, his speech included that, and that reminded me of our tourism sector. It's when you look at other economies like Tanzania and Kenya, our neighbors here, I won't go very far. They have invested heavily in tourism infrastructure. You look at five-star hotels in Kenya and the five-star hotels in Uganda, you definitely see the difference in number and in the quality of the workers there, the people that are actually doing the businesses. And I don't know what you have seen, but I think we need to do something probably to do with our tourism sector. And I want to get your thoughts as well on that, because we know as Uganda, the pearl of Africa, tourism is indispensable when it comes to national development, because we have billions of money as well brought in by tourists in all the different places that are attracting them.
Yeah, yes, it's true. Uganda is gifted by nature. The source of the Nile is here. We have one of the biggest freshwater lakes in Africa, if not the whole world. We have the mountain gorillas, a very unique feature in the whole world. We are privileged. We have the best mountains in the world. Uganda gifted with a diversity of culture, very interesting culture. You move from Karamoja to Chisoro, from Chisoro you go to Arua, very unique cultures. And these are good tourism features. So Uganda as a country, we are well endowed with unique facilities that can support a very robust tourism sector. Yes, there is some bit of work going on, especially driven by the private sector, to support and grow this sector. Yes, a few years ago, government created a ministry in charge of tourism, wildlife, and antiquities to provide direction to this sector, but also to show that maybe there is some bit of interest and the commitment on the side of government towards this sector. This sector contributes a lot of money. I may not have the figures offhand, but if I can recall very well, this sector contributes over 10% of our GDP as a country. So 10% of the 2.9 trillion is what tourism contributes to our GDP. So it's a very important sector to our growth agenda. Unfortunately, when you look at the national budget and the resources that are earmarked towards tourism, the two do not speak to each other. You'll find, for example, the office of the president taking more money than tourism. Tourism is an income generating ministry, but the other one is a consuming. It's an expenditure center. So you can see where our priorities are. So without so much going into politics so much, less has been done by government to support the tourism sector. More can be done, and it should be done. So there is need to provide a lot of support to marketing. We need to sell this country. We need to provide resources to sell this country out there.
You've seen Visit Rwanda.
Yes, countries that don't have what we have, they have done their best to sell their countries. For example, what does Dubai have for people to go and see? They only have sand.
Yes.
We have here fresh water, fresh fish, the mountain gorillas. We have the source of the Nile, the biggest freshwater lake in Africa. So we have a lot that our weather here, very good weather from January to January. So the key thing to start with is we need to market this country more. And I want to appeal to Ugandans who are listening to us. Let us speak good about this country. It's not that these countries outside, it's not that America, Europe, UK, Germany, Spain, it's not that they don't have problems. They do. But they don't promote negativity on their countries. They promote positivity. So once you have an opportunity as a Ugandan, speak good about your country. Promote your country. And in that way, those out there will be inspired to come and visit your country. So one, Ugandans who are listening to us, seek to know your country. Why should you invest money to go to Dubai when you have never gone to Kidepo National Park? You don't know what is in Kidepo National Park. So when even someone is telling you about Kidepo National Park, you may think they are talking to you about something that is in Egypt, because you have not been there. So can we, I'm happy to be speaking about this around a season that matches with what we are talking about, festive season. If you are to travel, can you travel around the country? Can you get to know your country? So that when you have an opportunity out there, you have had an opportunity to go to UK, to go to America, to go to London, to go to South Africa, can you speak well about Uganda? Can you promote your country? So there is need to invest heavily in marketing this country. If we are to bring in more tourism numbers. So that needs some bit of, not a bit, it needs, actually, tourism is about marketing. What do you bring on the table? What do you have to offer? I'll tell you, Anthony, the moment you meet a Ugandan out there, the starting point is how Uganda is bad. There's corruption, government people steal resources, there is nepotism, things don't work. Uganda is a very difficult country. Now you are speaking to someone who doesn't know about Uganda, someone uh, who has just heard about Uganda. You are painting a picture of a failed state to this person. Yes, those issues could be there, but can you provide this person? Can you? Because I'm sure, Anthony, there are more good things about this country than they are the bad ones.
Yeah, true.
So can we speak more good about this country? And I'm sure with that approach, it should be able to change the landscape. So marketing, government needs to provide more funding to this ministry to carry out its activities of providing the necessary support to the sector to grow. We talked about the issue of access to low-cost capital. Anthony, I will tell you, one of the sectors that was heavily disrupted, heavily hurt, is the tourism sector. What has been government support? This is a sector that needs serious support in terms of funding, in terms of engaging with commercial banks to provide credit relief to this sector so that this sector can rise again. Because the potential to rise again is there. I'll tell you that despite the limited support government provides to this sector, despite the limited marketing we do for this sector, you still see numbers growing.
Sure.
And why do they grow? There is a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential. So that is why summits like the US Africa Summit come in handy, because there are opportunities. And I'm happy this time, by the way, I was happy to hear a discussion about Mount Rwenzori and the different tourism features in this country. In a few years before, you would not hear these kinds of discussion. So this platform is important, it's good, it markets our tourism potential, which is very, very key if we are to develop the sector. Yes.
Thank you so much, Alex Mwezi, for your insights. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The US Africa Summit started on Monday. It will be ongoing for a couple of days. But we've just highlighted some of the benefits and what we can actually learn from the US and other African countries and how important our own integration as Africa is. Mr. Alex has pointed out the fact that we need to increase our access to capital, especially now out to the policymakers. This is a key problem that has to be addressed if we are to actually compete with other exporters from the African continent to other countries like the US. Other, of course, relevant technology transfer was another issue, competent manpower through strengthening and enhancing our education systems to produce brains that are relevant to the current challenges of the country. We also had issues of human rights. US is one of the countries that really has tried to handle human rights with great care and dignity. And of course, that is now, of course, being revealed as being one of the countries the highest economic growth ever. So that aside, we've of course had a good discussion on what can be done in our tourism sector. Very importantly, speak good about your country. Start marketing your own country, and definitely we shall get to achieve our economic goal in the long run. Now, that was it from us today. This is The Point. You can always catch us same time, same place next time. And of course, those of you who have been on YouTube, a very, very great thanks to you, and on our Twitter handle. And of course, we will definitely get those questions answered. My name is Anthony, and I have been your host. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.